Hello, I'm osukarui and I mostly speedrun obscure N64 games. These games generally don't have a lot of speedrunning documentation, so in this series I want to document my personal experience when speedrunning these games. I'll therefore cover the history of the game as a speed game, talk about speed strats, interesting movement tech, and glitches, along with the world record progression for the game. I hope you enjoy. The first N64 game I speedran was Tonic Trouble, but since I've already documented my history with that game in detail in another video, I will start with the second game I speedran, Carmageddon 64. Carmageddon 64 is often regarded as one of the worst games on the N64 console, with the likes of Superman 64. But since I grew up playing Carmageddon 2 on PC as a teenager, I had enough nostalgia for the game to see past those shortcomings. Carmageddon 64 and Carmageddon 2 have largely the same maps to drive on, so I already knew the game to some extent and speedrunning Carmageddon seemed like a fun venture. Most Carmageddon games follow a similar formula. The game consists of 10 groups or worlds, and each group consists of 3 races and 1 mission that a player must complete to advance to the next group. The game therefore has 30 races and 10 missions in total. These races and missions are scattered across 10 different open-world maps. These races can be played as a traditional racing game where the player goes through designated checkpoints to finish laps, but this has never really been the true appeal of the Carmageddon franchise. Instead, you can either destroy all enemy cars by wrecking into them or using weapons to launch at them, or you can kill every pedestrian, or zombies like they are called in the N64 version. And finally, to finish the missions, you have a limited amount of time to complete various tasks like racing, killing specific zombies, or blowing stuff up. You can then also collect the game's currency, called credits, buy new cars, and collect upgrades scattered around the levels. Now, when looking for new speed games, I generally look for games that I feel have not been developed a lot as a speed game. And in that sense, Carmageddon certainly fit the bill. When I entered the scene in late 2017, there was only one run on the speedrunning leaderboard, a 4-hour, 21 minutes and 11 seconds run performed on the 25th of May 2017 by the runner 30 Cents. Looking at this run, it's clear that 30 Cents knew the game to some extent before running and had some idea about what they intended to do, but had not done a whole lot of preparing for the run. They only ever did this one run, and judging from the run description and this comment on one of my later runs, they clearly did the run more as a joke. I mentioned earlier that there were 3 methods to finish the races in Carmageddon: drive the laps, destroy other cars, or kill all the zombies. Generally, the fastest way to go is to destroy all the other cars. This does, however, involve certain random factors. In each race, you have to destroy 3 to 5 enemy cars, and since the maps are not really constructed around the checkpoints, but are instead more open world, finding the other cars can sometimes become very troublesome. In order to go fast, I opted to finish 4 of the races at the beginning of the game by driving through the laps, since these maps are very mazy and finding the enemy cars was very difficult. But the rest of the races I would finish by destroying all the enemy cars. However, my main improvement for going fast was to use the upgrades scattered around the levels. Each race has 3 hidden upgrades: an armor upgrade, an offensive upgrade, and a power upgrade. I first had to find as many of these upgrades as I could, since the upgrade locations were not very well documented. I then had to make a route that involved finding out which upgrades could be collected fast enough to be worth collecting. I was mostly aiming for the offensive upgrades, since they allowed me to wreck the enemy cars faster, but power upgrades would also help, since they made the car go slightly faster. And this is, after all, a speedrun. I eventually settled on a route that collected 12 offensive upgrades and 3 power upgrades. Then, in Group 5, or Race 13, I copied 30 Cent's run and bought a car called Bugmeister. In Group 4, the game would start spawning more difficult opponents, and one of those was Bugmeister, so I would make sure to restart Race 13 until Bugmeister appeared so I could buy it after the race and use it for the rest of the game. Having Bugmeister, a very offense-heavy car, and a lot of upgrades meant I could simply plow through all enemies very quickly for the rest of the game. After making my route and practicing the missions, I was ready to do a speedrun, so I booted up my emulator and did a run. I don't remember exactly the time I got, because when I was going to submit the game to speedrun.com, I realized that emulators were banned for this game. You see, this game is incredibly laggy, so running on an emulator is a huge advantage. Although a bit dismayed by this at first, I felt that I had already invested too much time in routing the game to not have a run submitted to the leaderboards. So I ordered an NTSC N64 console on eBay, and to this day I am eternally grateful to Carmageddon 64 for making me buy a proper console to do my N64 runs. A decision that would ultimately fuel my speedrunning path for years to come. After waiting for a few weeks, I finally received my console and managed to do a proper run. On the 27th of February 2018, I claimed the world record with a time of 2 hours, 1 minute and 58 seconds. Later that same day, I would do another run and got a time of 1 hour, 55 minutes and 59 seconds. After that, I was going to do more runs to get a time under 1 hour and 50 minutes, but I never got around to it, so that stayed the world record for over 3 years. Now, I enjoy glitch hunting equally much as speedrunning, if not even more. So occasionally I will pick up old speed games I used to run and fool around looking for glitches. I don't remember specifically what made me pick up Carmageddon again in 2021, but I did, and during my session, I discovered an extremely powerful glitch. Or I thought I had discovered it. During the making of this video, I stumbled upon a wiki page detailing this glitch and a video by SPO made around 10 years ago, showing the glitch. Turns out I didn't discover it at all. The glitch is performed by pressing B, the brake and reverse button, and C down, the wheel spin button, simultaneously, and then pressing the analog stick to either the right or left. This will make the car gain insane amounts of speed, and it will be flung sideways to the direction you pressed the analog stick. With this wheel spin glitch, you can position yourself so that your car is beside an enemy car, and then if you do the wheel spin glitch, your car will be flung into the enemy car with so much speed and power that it will get destroyed instantly. This made destroying enemy cars so much faster and easier that no races needed to be finished by racing through the laps, and no upgrades needed to be collected. After figuring out how the glitch works, I decided to do another run, and on the 22nd of July 2021, thanks to the new glitch, I got a time of 1 hour, 20 minutes and 26 seconds, more than 30 minutes cut off my last run. Again, I was planning on improving this time, but I never got around to it, and although I would eventually get a better time, in some sense I never improved this time at all, because the glitch I used to get a better time would be so incredibly broken that it would call for a new category to be made. Now, this glitch requires a controller pack, and on that controller pack there needs to be a save that has already beaten all the races in the game. We will call that save file File A. To do a run, I would then start the timer by starting a new game, and therefore a new save file as well. We will call this save file File X, the file we are doing the run on. As soon as the new game is started, I would restart the console and reload the save file I just started, File X. File X is then of course in the first group at the beginning of the game, and I would select one race to play. I picked race 3 because it has tight walls all around, so it's very easy to destroy all the cars quickly. Now here comes the strange part. After finishing one race, the game takes you back to the race select screen, but instead of being in group 1, you will have the data from file A and therefore be in group 10 with access to the final mission in the game. With this route, you only have to finish one race and one mission to finish the entire game. And so, on the 2nd of March 2022, I got a time of 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Now, I know this sort of run or glitch might be somewhat controversial. Some people might argue that you have simply entered game file A, so you didn't really finish the game on save file X. But there are two reasons why that's not the case. Firstly, because at no point do we as the player actually load in save file A. The game and the glitch handle that completely for us. Somehow, by ending the first race, the game retrieves the data from the wrong file. So, as a player, the only file we ever select during the run is file X. And secondly, the save file only has the race select data from file A, but retains the credits or money data from file X. So while you do have the race select options from file A, you don't have the credits from file A. So the save file I finished the game in actually almost seems like a hybrid between the two save files. Some people might also argue that since it requires the player to have a nearly completed save file before starting the run, as opposed to starting the game from a perfectly fresh cartridge, it's not legit. But games such as Banjo-Kazooie have runs that use a glitch called Furnace Fun Moves, which requires the player to play through nearly all of the game in one save file to save time in future runs on another save file. Another example of a game that does something similar, albeit in a much smaller capacity, is another game I run called Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. Indiana Jones only allows you to skip certain cutscenes once you have watched them before on that particular cartridge. So you essentially have to break in your cartridge by doing one full game run where you watch all of the cutscenes. After that one run, you can skip the cutscenes in the future runs, making it so that essentially a previous run is having some effect on your future runs. Meaning, we are not running from a perfectly fresh file. But hey, if you disagree with me or have any opinions on this glitch, I would genuinely love to hear about it in the comments. Since this game doesn't really have a community, I have just been alone in calling the shots regarding this. Currently, the leaderboards have one category for the controller pack glitch called any %, since it's the fastest category, and one category which bans the controller pack glitch called any % no CPG. I should also mention that there is a 100% category. On the 5th of November 2022, I ran the first ever 100% run of the game, clocking in at 2 hours, 24 minutes and 32 seconds. The 100% category makes the player collect all 3 hidden upgrades in each race, making it so you need to collect 90 upgrades over the run. Overall, I have personally really enjoyed my speedrunning journey with Carmageddon 64. But, however, let's not forget that this game is notoriously bad, so the speedrun is most definitely not without its flaws. The driving controls are very hectic, the car accelerates very fast and the steering is extremely sensitive. The slightest tap to the right or left will make you turn way more than you intended, so precise driving can be very difficult. And the intense lag at times does certainly not help with the controls either. However, although these sorts of controls might be bad for casual playing, I feel like the sensitive controls heighten the complexity and beauty of the game as a speedrun. You really need to master these controls if you intend to go fast. This run can also get somewhat repetitive, with each race consisting of killing the other cars one by one and then simply rinsing and repeating for the rest of the game. But on the other hand, the enemy car's behavior AI and its RNG will also guarantee that no run is the same, making the runs actually kind of diverse. But repetitive or diverse, there's no doubt that using the wheel spin glitch to utterly dominate enemy cars over and over again can feel incredibly cathartic. To go fast, you need to know the layout of each level very well. You need to have good control over the car, be able to react to enemy movement, and you need to strategize in how you intend to go about destroying the enemy cars. I'm personally not a very talented speedrunner, so I believe the sky is the limit on how fast this game can be beaten if more people were to try. I tend to be generally pretty positive towards the games I speedrun, because when speedrunning a game, how good or bad that game is as a casual game becomes somewhat irrelevant. To me, the real beauty of a game as a speed game is the innovations needed to be made for speed. Now, whether these innovations are fun or not can be somewhat random, but in the case of Carmageddon 64, I like the result. I know many others would disagree, but I find a lot of beauty in speedrunning this otherwise terrible game.